Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info at yourmoneyontap.com. My name is Seth Cressman, and I'm feeling pretty good today. Not that you're asking, but I know Ben and Dan are interested and about to ask anyway, so I'll just get it out of the way. There you go, guys. I'm here with Ben Brayshaw, Dan Mickelin. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, Seth. I'm excited. I'm excited about today's show. I'm excited about some of the real opportunity to communicate with people about their fears in investing and what's holding them back. I think it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, I think this is interesting, thinking about the kind of different dynamics people have and mentally how they look at money and feel about it. It's an interesting take. I think people are going to get a lot out of the show.
Wow. That's good. We're all of the same mind today, that today is going to be a productive Money on Tap, not only for us, but for you. We're all financial planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. And this is an opportunity for you to connect with us, what we're doing in the financial planning world or universe. As independent financial planners, that's what we get the opportunity to take a look at for you in your financial planning. And so we welcome that opportunity for you to give us a call, get a free consultation with us. We love doing that. And, a lot of our Money on Tappers out there just subscribe in the podcast and, love it because we get to send them, all sorts of Money on Tap gear and fun stuff like that. If that's you, subscribe, send us a little note, let us know. We want to get you on board with Money on Tap, and hopefully there's an opportunity for maybe you to bring a show to us, something that you are going through in your financial journey, and you're looking for some feedback, and we love bringing that to the table here with you at Money on Tap as well. There's a lot of different directions we go on Money on Tap. Today, we are going to be talking about the financial personality, and we're going to unveil your financial personality here. And we're not ones to really expose you here as far as what you're bringing to the table in your financial personality. That's not the point, but it is an opportunity for us to get to know ourselves a little better and become better investors. That's what we like to focus on here, is just moving the needle a little bit at a time and getting better every day at what we're doing here at Money on Tap. So, gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot for us to cover right out of the gate. What do you think about that?
Seth, I think you're right. I mean, the biggest thing we struggle with as planners and working with people is the fact that, hey, what are the roadblocks that are inside someone's life that's preventing them from becoming the successful investor that they want to be? There is nothing between what someone has and what they want it to be other than themselves, right? I mean, we have the market, and that's a continuously moving piece, but there's just so many different, things happening in the background that are almost limitless in the things that hold people back from either the certain type of investment that they want to do. Like we have people that don't want to own, certain types of investments, which we respect. There's like the, kind of the drug and alcohol kind of, person who says, I don't want to own any of that, which is fine. We don't have any play either way, honestly, with that stuff. But there's just people who have different roadblocks that creating a successful portfolio, creating a successful outcome for them, creating a successful future for them, like those are all have to be navigated through, whatever might be a hindrance in their mind. And, getting them there and, circumventing those waters is something that we do regularly. And I think we do a great job at it. And, really trying to find something that people can, enjoy and palate and be part of when they're in a healthy spot.
Fantastic. We're going to jump into that here in just a little bit. But before we do, it is time for Money in the News.
And coming to us first today from The Big Idea, student loan repayments are back and more confusing than ever. And this article I found interesting, quite honestly, because it was just a different take on this whole student loan pause theory that came out of the pandemic. And, I know it was a lot of relief for people who are in that position. But quite honestly, as someone who's been long graduated and long settled up on any of those obligations, and I know many people in that same boat, I really just didn't honestly have a ton of sympathy for these folks, particularly after the, kind of the extension after extension after extension. And I guess I learned here in the article that the federal government's extended that 8 times, which I was surprised, to hear about that. But this article, definitely sheds a little bit of light on it. And the volume of student loans out there is also something that, maybe I just really wasn't aware of. But they've also had a 42-month freeze on the interest on these loan repayments as well. So it really just seemed like a kind of a sweetheart deal for people in that spot. But it ends up being here that there are 44 million borrowers in the United States. So 44 million people out there that still hold student loans. And the average obligation for each of those is $38,000, which is a pretty significant number. And, obviously the cost of education is something that we deal with as planners all the time, usually more of a forward-looking thing than kind of backward-looking as this article lays out for us here. But it is really a tremendous amount of money. And, with the restart of the program, some of the things that I found interesting here is that these people are just, those who are, intending to pay, planning to pay, are just utterly confused about how to pay. And in a lot of instances, who to pay. So this pause has really kind of, wreaked a lot of havoc in that whole system for sure. I don't know where these people are going to quite honestly turn and to figure all this out. And it's all about to start happening literally right now.
I would actually ask, if you're listening today, I'd be curious, email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. I'd love to hear your opinion about whether or not student debt or any version of student debt should be covered by our government. I'm really curious. There's a lot of perspectives on this and the type of student debt that might be an issue. I think, and there's statistics around this. Now, I paid my own student loans. My wife and I, we paid our own way to college. We paid off our own loans. I don't feel like I have any sort of obligation to pay for other people's education. But I do think it's interesting because there's a whole nother conversation here, Dan. I think that I would throw back at our country and our needs is to, curtail debt in a way that is, pushing people in a way that meets our needs as a country. Like, for instance, I think we should be subsidizing, if we're going to pay for anything, I think we should be subsidizing, plumbing companies and electrical companies and so forth to help, grow our trades and literally subsidize these kids' income to go and learn to become a plumber or an electrician. Like, I think there's ways we could, if we're going to address debt, let's not address the debt that everyone's just going to college to, party and have a good time and, maybe not even focus hard on school. I mean, maybe that's a broad statement, but I look at some of the stuff going on in college and it's, not necessarily a learning environment entirely all the time. And, I think we don't need a lot of more graduates in America. We need more people doing, kind of the trade-based work that has, and you guys, we talked about it. Like, we grew up in a culture that, minimized people who didn't go to college. It was an unspoken thing in school that if you didn't go to, you're not going to college. Like, honestly, Dan, we work with people who are in the trades. My uncle, I worked as an electrician in high school and college for my uncle. They made great money. There is not a tradesperson out there not making great money, probably better than most people are graduating from college on an average basis. So when I look at this whole debt payoff thing, and I look at these statistics, it says, student, debt accounts for an estimated 20% of the decline in home ownerships for young adults. Borrowers contribute 6% less on average to retirement savings than those without student debt. These are potentially true facts. I don't know that, but at the same time, the person chose to go there in hopes that they would have debt now as an investment that they would be making a whole heck of a lot more in the future. That's the whole point of it, right? So if that's not working out for you, maybe you just got to give it some time. Is there a time period that we actually look at this person's, college education failed and in 15 years we subsidize some of it? I mean, why are we going to pay for it day one? Like, let them go work and get a job and start paying for it first. Prove they can't afford it and then go from there. Did our banking system fail and say we shouldn't give loans to people regardless of their financial ability to pay them back? Because our government has completely thrown out lending standards.
It's a tough question here because it's a system that we've been operating in for well before we were a part of it, and our parents were a part of it, and so on and so forth. So we've kind of built this path, and there's feeding happening voraciously on every part of this, whether it's the lending side, whether it's the outcome at the consumer end on the institutions that are providing the education. There's a ton of money. It's the second largest debt that outside of homes or mortgages that we hold in this country. And that alone speaks volumes to the impact that it has. Now, one of the adverse parts here that I was looking at, which is pretty substantial, I think, was that 20% of the decline of home ownership for young adults is was that right? Student debt accounts for an estimated, 20% of the decline of home ownership for young adults. And we've seen a dramatic decrease in home ownership among that post-undergraduate person that's out there right now that typically would be, get a job, have a family, buy a home, all those things. It's sucking quite a bit out of that part of our economy. And left unaddressed, I don't know what's going to happen here. There's another side of this as well, which really ties back, I think, into some pensions as well. I think there's some big money influences here. And when we're sending, I was trying to take a look at the latest dollar amount of what's being sent overseas. I got to get on this side here of let's domicile some of this stuff here first before we continue to just be sending it across. Our taxes being sent out to, you name it, whatever there's no accountability for across the U.S. border for. So I'd love to see it brought back home. I'd love to see something different done here for us in the United States, as well as the people that we've been telling or selling this dream of go to school, get a great education, have a great life. Well, that promise is not being fulfilled. And, I don't necessarily think that not having an accountability for the dollars that have been borrowed is the ideal here as well. I don't have a solution in that, but my gosh, it's going to be interesting to see how this starts to unfold. Next up, you guys, we have Josh. Speaking of debt, this was I really love this. This was from Fox Business by Eric Ravel. Josh Hawley wants to cap credit card interest rates and introduce legislation to do it. Introduces the legislation to do it. That's a Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, Republican from Missouri, introduced new legislation to cap the credit card rates. Now, the cap that he's introducing is an 18% cap. This is not a new design. It's been addressed before. Previously, it was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders that wanted to bring it down to 15%. Now, the things that they're listing here as what could possibly be the trade-off here, I don't know that I see it as much of a trade-off because they're talking about, that extra 18% to 30% that we could be spending on your credit cards these days going towards things like rewards. Okay. Or people that don't necessarily have great credit or qualify for credit cards being, allowed to borrow, but at those higher interest rates. Most of the people out there would say they'd be willing to sacrifice those things to have lower interest rates on their credit cards, apparently.
Yeah, I think probably the most interesting and amazing thing about this article is what you just pointed out there, Seth, and I didn't even catch it first read through, but you get AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Josh Hawley agreeing on something. That's going to have to pass if you get those three on board. I mean, forget it. That's there's probably never been another topic that they've voted the same way on. But yeah, that's the downside to this is, it's for people who are in credit trouble, quite honestly, have poor credit scores, their access to this. And for many of those people, it probably is a lifeline of sorts. It would be severely restricted, if not cut off entirely, should this pass. These credit card companies and lenders in general, just won't take on that risk for less than they price it at.
Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, I mean, we've got good credit, and my interest rates aren't lower because I have good credit on my credit card. I think.
No, they're not.
It's. I can call the credit card company every once in a while, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, well, we'll lower your rate for 6 months to I don't know, whatever, 5 or 6 or 7%, and then it goes back to something else." And as we're small business owners and everyone out there, us included, we run up credit cards and then we pay them all down, and that's just because the business flow is just that's the way life works, and nobody's just independently wealthy out there. There are some people, but the idea of just having credit cards, utilizing, especially business owners, all the time, they got to buy goods and services. Plumber's got to buy pipes, and an electrician's got to buy wire, and it's a big job, and I got to put it on the credit card, and then I'll get paid in 6 months. So, and they factor those things into their their costs. I think honestly, it would be better if credit card companies actually had to rate the risk per the person. Like, you applied for the credit card, here's my social, do my credit check, this is what I do, and you should get rewarded for that. Because honestly, I go out of my way never to try to use my credit cards. And it's just really, it's just kind of funny, because we've had people where, running businesses, that they borrowed against their brokerage account because that was half the rate of the credit card. And, so we're a big business. So I think it's really kind of sad that credit cards don't operate under that kind of, scenario, because really what's happening, and it's socialism across the board, right? If you're going to make this 18% flat, Josh, and that's socialism. You can't cap this. And I obviously don't believe in a perfect capitalistic system, but I really think that credit cards should be held responsible for the risk they purchase. And you're right, this is going to cut a lot of people off, but it's really going to push the pressure on those who have the good credit, running good businesses, that are going to be paying for the people who don't have good credit.
And there's been a real life test of this on a smaller scale, because back in the 90s, they actually passed something where federal credit unions are capped at 18%. That's the number that at the top end that they can charge. But if you compare what, doing business at a credit union is versus some of these major banks, right away you can tell the difference. You lose all the perks, all the points, all the miles, all that other kind of stuff you get with spending money at, a rate that's yet to be determined by the credit issuer. That's, you kind of get all these perks for it. But, according to the polling that's part of the article here, by a fairly significant margin, people would rather, get the lesser rate and do away with the extras.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, guess what? There are some benefits coming down the road. Apparently, Social Security benefits could rise by more than $57 a month next year. Thank you, Carrie Hannon. This is and not as much of an adjustment by the COLA from last year. This will be more closer to a 3.2% next year. Still quite a bit better than previous years. Again, far below that 8.7%, which was this last year. And for the past 20 years, it's been roughly 2.6%. But the 3% hike, they're saying, is really a good indication that inflation's not over.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that the cost of milk is only up 3.2% and 8% last year. So it's a little bit of a rise. It's something. It's $57 for the average person, and that's generally good news. No one's going to balk at getting a little bit more Social Security, but I mean 3% is pretty pathetic. Honestly, I really think the government should be embarrassed by this.
And it is going to be offset too by an expected increase in the medical Part B premiums that's coming through, largely due to the approval of an Alzheimer's drug, but. The estimate on that at this point is going to be a $5, per participant cost increase. So out of that $57 per month bump you got, you're going to have a $5 cost increase to offset as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan, because a lot of people don't talk about how, your expenses with the government also go up inside these programs when they do these raises. But I honestly think that even if, going up $5, your net is, 52 on average, I still think the 3.2% is a little low.
You heard it here first. You've been listening to Money on Tap. And when we come back, we are going to be diving into the money personalities, the different money personalities that all of us have. You might have a blend of a couple out there, or maybe you're pretty much just one or the other. But as we discuss these, we're going to find some new ways for you to become a better investor and maybe just a better partner. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Hey everyone, Dan Mickelon here with Brayshaw Financial. Looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100, enjoy a user-friendly platform with a diverse range of investment options. Visit Brayshaw Financial Group and start your investment journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And it's a great show here for anybody that is looking to understand a little bit more about themselves and how they relate with money. And we all agree here at Money on Tap that this is one of those places that there just isn't a whole lot of time spent in the world of financial planning. Very rarely do we have anybody that comes and sits with us and has a really good grasp of who they are in relationship to money. And why this is so important is because the more that we understand around the psychology of how people work with money, and money is a very emotional, response-driven decision maker for everybody. We all do it. And recognizing how we do that, okay, allows you to have a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room before you make a decision on whatever the investment is. And I think also people need to understand this as well when we're talking about investment. Really investing is whatever you choose to do with your money, whether that's at the grocery store or with your children or with your spouse or with whatever, you name it. That's what you're investing in. How are you spending your time, man? If you understand the why and what's driving that, guess what? You can actually have some better outcomes and some more control over those outcomes. Because I can't tell you how many times people feel like they don't have the ability to either see the outcome that they've been wanting or get to the outcome that they've been wanting. And as we kind of trace this back, here we are. We are at a ground zero with you people, and it's wonderful to be here. So with that, we want you to, first of all, understand what are the different money personality types. And as we're going through these, is an exercise for us all. Okay. And we just went through it ourselves. So as we were putting this together, it's like, well, we identify ourselves. What kind of a money personality are we? And that's, and that can change over time, just so you know, wherever you are right now, don't feel like you're stuck, because you can actually change this. But with that, let's identify who are you right now with money?
Well, I love talking about this because we actually live with this. I mean, like, we're going to talk about 6 or 7 different money personality types, but I would say there's probably 10,000 of them and different versions and cross-reference versions. And then when people get
there's
married,
several diagnoses that we have yet to discover here on Money on Tap.
Yeah, we're not diagnosing any of our clients. They all know where they. No, it's funny because we have people tell us all the time, this is just something I struggle with. This is just how I grew up, or this is just how I see it. And everyone has a different set of lenses as they're looking at money and evaluating money and how they use money or how it is to them, right? There's, no one wants to be the hoarder. Like, that's a bad word, but they love calling themselves savers, and so it's like, you can put yourself in whatever frame of reference, but the truth is really trying to get to the core of who you are is super, super important. We were just chatting about it before the show about which one we are, because we have our positives and our negatives and our ability to manage and handle money. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to hear from the financial planner who, spends all his money, or he does this or does that. It's like, we audit financial planners. We see horrible management of someone else's own money because we evaluate their bank accounts and we look at their investment portfolios. Like, when we're auditing somebody, we look at all their stuff, good, bad, and indifferent. And we look at their credit scores, and, you'd be shocked at what's out in the world. But some people can be entirely a mess personally and actually be good planners. They can give good advice. They just don't live by it because that's just not who they are. But I think it's important, to practice what you preach. And I really do try that. I know we all do. We talk about our finances very openly among, all the partners here. So we have a really good idea. We've given advice on how to handle things. I mean, goodness gracious, one time I was looking at my portfolio and I was just, I looked at Dan and I handed him my phone and I was like, I really feel like I should sell one of these things. What do you think? Right, Dan? Remember, Dan was literally scanning through my thing. He's like, oh, I'd sell this one. You're way too emotionally attached to that. You should get rid of this one. Yep, keep this one. Take the profits in that one. Because...
And you did none of it, too. You did none of it. Absolutely none of it, I'm sure.
Oh, that's not true. But, it's funny. The truth is that when I looked at that, I realized that, I would make those trades for a client. When I removed my personal self from it, was able to see it without, because you get emotionally attached to your own money. And we've managed money. I've managed money for other financial planners all the time. It's like not an uncommon thing. And, I talk to my partners because I trust them. And I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm not unfairly biased because of my own personality and things that are moving around my mind, and other goals and concerns and fears and woes. Like, we all live within those. And, if anyone tells you any different, they're just not being forthright. And I think it's important to know that, we're human too, and bringing about some clarity on, these struggles. Like, we can help you with some of these struggles, because I tell you, all three of us are different personality types in this world. So I'm pretty interested with this, but I'll turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, I mean, in the first one that comes up, you already made reference to it, and this one's near and dear to me because, like all of us, I grew up around my grandparents, quite extensively, and they're all depression survivors, right? So they were the ultimate compulsive savers. I mean, they were doing the reuse, reduce, recycle thing before that was popular, or anyone even understood it. Washing out Ziploc bags and things like this. Even though, come to find out on my grandmother's passing, she was basically a millionaire, but she was still rinsing out Ziploc bags and, reusing plastic grocery bags. And that's just the way she lived her entire life. And she saved. So these compulsive savers, I mean, they see money as security. To them, it's more than a number on a statement or on a balance sheet. It's like the house around them. It brings a sense of security psychologically that is hard to describe, and it's really something having to do with coming from nothing and going through times where they had nothing, and then they at some point along the way they prosper and they have more than nothing, and then more and then more and then more, but they save it all. And there's obviously a lot of good attributes to that, but some of the downside to it is these people, speaking of the ones that I know personally up close, they never went anywhere, they never did anything. It was all just hoarded, to borrow that word from you, Ben, and, with the intention of, if I know it's there and I believe in it, it gives me security, and ultimately we're going to pass that on. So that's one personality type. That's the far end of the spectrum. And for people who are not that, if you're in a relationship, that can be really hard to get your arms around and manage your way through that. And as advisors working with people that find themselves in that space, it really comes down to, there's a kind of a second leg to that question. Are they compulsive savers that need to have their money only at the bank and something that they feel is entirely risk-free? Or are they comfortable saving, knowing that the money's there for them, but putting it to work and actually taking the next step of investing it? And then not everybody's the same, even on that kind of two-pronged approach to being a compulsive saver.
Yeah, we've, of course, have the other side of the spectrum there, which is the compulsive spender. Often makes unnecessary purchases, spends when in an emotional distress for immediate gratification, experiences buyer's remorse after big splurges. And then moving on to compulsive moneymaker, believes life is better when you earn more. Their top priority is growing wealth, making more money, craves recognition for their financial success. Maybe that's some of you guys out there. I know a couple of those. The indifferent to money, and they tend to be financially well off, rarely thinks about money, feels money should not influence important decisions in life. This is one in the planning world that can be a really, really tough one for us to kind of nail down, because they're just, for whatever reason, they find themselves in our office and they're like, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I'm good. Let's go. And, the saver splurger, that, you got the splurge in there, Ben. We can go with that. But there's that's the combo, right? They kind of embody both. They really do a great job saving. And then for whatever reason, and they're very smart with their money, but then for whatever reason, they, something happens and they're like, I bought it. I just did it. Had to. The last two here are the gambler. And they share kind of this combo traits of the spenders and the moneymaker. Take big risks with money, happy with the financial wins, but deeply depressed over losses. And then the worrier. There's this constantly worried about losing money, lacks confidence in the ability to achieve financial freedom sometimes, and usually in some kind of a preparation mode. Which one of these, or which combination of these, can you identify with? I think it's important, if you can, write that down just to understand a little bit of how the rest of this kind of moves through your finances and your relationships. We want to make sure we've already kind of included that, because you're probably, if you're the compulsive saver, you probably are in a relationship with maybe it's a gambler or the saver splurger. Maybe even just the complete polar opposite of that compulsive spender. They usually, they have this tendency to kind of get together intuitively, knowing that the other person might kind of help them out with this blind spot that they've got, until that happens, and then they realize, oh, I wasn't expecting you to really have that to say about my spending or my saving.
Seth, you read through those. I mean, there's a lot that kind of go together. Like the compulsive saver and the worrier are really, kind of a common place. Like somebody who saves money without stopping. They're super frugal, but they're really worried about losing money. And those two go together pretty well. And then honestly, the compulsive spender and then the gambler usually are very commonly one personality. I've at least found that. And we've had it where, the compulsive spender and the compulsive saver, they're husband and wife, and that's really, really complicated. And we've had it where, somebody who's, kind of indifferent to money and somebody who's the worrier, that what ends up happening is that they might be indifferent because they're well off and things seem fine, but then the worrier, is constantly worried about losing money and so forth, and they're constantly talking about it, but the person who's indifferent to it doesn't want to talk. They don't care. They don't care about the money. They don't care about their worries or fears. And so we find that there's communication problems where the person who's indifferent to it doesn't want to have a meeting with a financial planner, but the other spouse who's the worrier, and it doesn't mean that you're worried, like in a negative term, but you're concerned about, hey, this person's not giving the attention to what we need to do in our finances that I see as clear as day. Because again, my lenses say we've got things that we have to look at. We lost money in the market last month and we need to do this, and we don't have a will and a trust together, and we should call somebody. And so it's really hard. So, I can't tell you right, Dan, how many times people come in and they're like, oh, well, my husband or my wife, they're not going to come. And I literally turn around and just say, we're not going to do the meeting. And that's one of the things where we have to really shut it down and let people know that it has to be a partnership when we deal with the finances.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you are looking for a financial partnership, that's what we do at Brayshaw Financial Group here at Money on Tap. We're financial planners. We welcome you here, and we'd love to go ahead and spend a free hour with you. just diving into what it is that makes up you and your financial journey and help you get either unlocked or make that next step reality for you. That's what we're doing here at Money on Tap at Brayshaw Financial Group. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Are you looking for personalized guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Group and our planners are here to help. Our team of experts will provide personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today to schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are diving into the financial personality and unveiling your financial personality. Or maybe you've already identified your spouse's financial personality before you identified your own. Oh, there's no names here that we need to speak of.
I'll give you one.
That's happened. That's been known to happen.
Yeah, this emotional spending for the compulsive spender. As I'm reading that really hit home. I'm much more of the, I could walk by a rack in a store and say, "Oh, that looks nice. Let me think about that. I'll come back and get it another time." And my wife can't. That thing is going in the cart, and that's an immediate. But every time she was pregnant, it was just like shopping spree city, man. This emotional thing in her. She just had to go out there and shop. And I have no fear of her listening to this, so I can speak freely on it. But the instant gratification, the way she would, like, if she's in a bad mood, just satisfy that by spending money, just going and buying stuff, is something I've never understood, because I just had a totally different perspective on it. I always loved just keeping it in my pocket, just knowing where it's at. Because it doesn't give me that pleasure to shop. It just doesn't trigger the same emotional response in me that it does in her. But that's something I've come to know that I got to understand about our relationship, because I, and would like to stay married and just have to deal with that. But, rationality kind of flies out the window. So if you're in that type of a partnership with somebody, just having that perspective on what it means to them versus what it means to you versus what it means to your checking account is just something you got to take a step back and kind of evaluate from time to time, and maybe don't overreact to it.
There's no judgment here with us. There's a lot of people who come in and be like, "Oh, I know what you're going to think of me," and I'm like, I don't think anything. Well, you come here to get help with whatever it is that you need help with, whether it's managing stocks or getting out of debt, or talking about somebody with about a budget. It doesn't matter which personality type you are. And a lot of people come in fearful that they haven't either hit the amount of money that they should have to talk to somebody, or I don't know, they're just filled with fears. Like, there's all these fears that are completely unjustified, other than what they may have thought or what people think of them. I know in New England, money is one of those things that we keep super private, right? We're obviously bound by confidentiality, but at the end of the day, if you don't get help, how far down the road could you be making meaningful mistakes? And when I say mistakes, you could be missing out on a major return, or an opportunity for tax advantages, or trust management to avoid estate taxes, or whatever the scenario is. You could be losing in a way that's just not worth the pride moment. And I do find that there's a lot of people in there, in each one of these personalities guys, that comes in and says, "Well, I don't know what you're going to think of this," or "I bought that stock and I'm sure that was a bad move," or what. I'm like, we're not here to judge. We're here to help you move forward. We're here to partner with you, to take you to the next level, to help you find success, in your investing. That's what our goal is. But I've always said, that people need to either have some sort of need that they want to accomplish or some sort of outcome they're shooting for. That's got to be the only two reasons people actually do anything. I've found that, if we don't actually help people through those fears, they just never get to where they want to be in the way they can potentially be. Like we look at things and we say, well, this is what you're doing. If we do this, this is where your savings are, or your fee expense reduction is, or your estate tax reduction is, or you can save taxes every year if you own this versus that. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have just really been the right mindset of the type of investment, but own the wrong investment because it costs them a little bit more in taxes. That has happened. I can't even countless times. And when we talk about these personality types, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm the saver splurger. I mean, that's who I am. I'm Dan knows me. I'm a save, and all of a sudden we got an issue. And when we had to build the radio studio, I think Dan almost had a heart attack. So, so kind of funny when you think about it, because Dan he's the saver, and so for him, I might as well be the compulsive spender in his mind, right? But, so you have to really analyze and know. And so for us, we sit down with people and we're able to really say, hey, this is where your differences are in your relationship financially, and we can bridge those well. We can find the investments that make everyone kind of come together in a way that's, both either a better return than you're doing now. Like, we have people who just keep money in the bank, and we found that, they're, have over $500,000 jointly in the bank, and they're not FDIC insured. And we're like, well, you've got a CD and you've got the savings account, but you're not at the same bank. You're at the same bank and you got the same coverage. So it doesn't matter. Combined, it's over $500,000. What about buying a fixed annuity that pays more than your CD and then ultimately moves a portion of that risk out of and below the $500,000? Still guaranteed, still going to provide the opportunity for you, and if it works for you from a, tax standpoint and so forth, could be all around a better scenario. But if you don't have a conversation, now we've made the person who wants to make more money, we've answered a little bit better scenario there. And the person who's worried, well, we've still have guarantees, and honestly, they should be worried if they're over $500,000 in the bank. So, as a married, couple, so there's lots of ways that we can mitigate risk and concern and fears. And I don't know if you guys want to share any particular stories, but that's kind of some of the stuff that I find is that somebody's really, really scared to invest, and the other person's saying, we got to do something.
Yeah, I definitely have, some experience with clients that it's somewhere between the compulsive moneymaker and the indifferent to money. They have just always done well, or well, I shouldn't say that. They believe they'll always do well, and they have had long stretches of doing well, but then they've had struggles, things that have resulted in, really difficult times. But their personality and their outlook towards money never changed. Right. Even though they were in hard times, they still wanted to, take the trips, buy the cars, have as many good time as they could, even against the best advice I could offer, and to say, well, hey, listen, maybe it's time to tone it down. Invariably, they just keep finding their ways into opportunities and they make more money. And they, their checking account balance, their investment balance, you see it go up and down like a roller coaster, but you would never tell by looking at them or even having a conversation with them about them. And quite honestly, I never really got a hint of worry out of them, which was surprising to me because I was worried for them. But they just had this faith that the next big hit was around the corner. And, lo and behold, for these particular people, it works out that way. And that's not, again, it was counter to the advice I would offer. And I wouldn't say that's a scenario that's going to happen to very many of us. But they've found a way to be, both skilled and lucky and just kind of force their way through these times and still enjoy life and find a way to land back on their feet. Literally each and every time. So it's impressive.
Yeah, Dan, when I think about the gambler, there's a lot of people that, they are the business owner. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that the business owner really is gambling every day, right? I mean, you are putting huge risk, high risk on the table. And that necessarily shouldn't reflect directly in your portfolio, though, either, because you may need that money and so forth. So I found from a balance of, risk and reward, business owners are high risk takers. That's just part of the personality.
There are some ways that the compulsive moneymaker, typically somebody that is that business owner, or maybe they're a founder, and some of the drawbacks with that is that they're so attached to their business or their work or such a driver in that area that personal relationships can suffer greatly. I find more often than not the compulsive moneymaker winds up being divorced because they've, have a spouse that feels left alone, or their needs aren't met, even though they're great providers for them as well. And so recognizing that in that challenge in your life and being able to take a step back and say, what's most important? Okay. Understanding the why of your compulsive moneymaker personality is really important too. A lot of the time that's driven by, a need for recognition. There can be some broken relationships in your early childhood that really formulate a lot of that stuff. But we're not here to dive into that with you today, but just understanding some of those triggers that allow for this behavior to be so prevalent, and then how that affects the people around you. Now, as far as an investment, what would I recommend considering for somebody that's in this, or considering for somebody that's maybe the gambler as well? I would say, the tendency to be a spender, or to not necessarily pay attention to the kind of spending that's happening. Well, in that case, probably something that has some illiquidity attached to it. So it's not readily available for you to turn around and liquidate and do something with. That allows kind of a check and balance just by the nature of that investment, to allow that person to not have it front of mind. It won't be the backstop. It won't be the go-to when they're looking for, that, for instance, the gambler, for where to go and try to place that next big hit for, the reward that they're looking for in the investment. Just a couple of things there that I was thinking about here. You're listening to Money on Tap. We are talking about the unveiling your financial personality. We've definitely been getting into some personal experience with kind of who we are as our personalities around money as well. Even our spouses. That was kind of fun to dive into that with you. I had a story I was going to share, but I'll do it when we get back. But you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'll be right back. Hey guys, Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. Our team of experienced advisors is dedicated to helping beginners like you build wealth through smart investing strategies. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today and start your journey towards financial independence. Brayshaw Financial Group, your partner in wealth creation.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about unveiling your financial personality. Well, I think Ben and Dan have done a really good job of unveiling themselves here. I have yet to kind of disclose who I am in my financial personality. But to do that, I'm going to share a quick story, and it's going to hopefully walk us into this process of understanding ourselves and how to walk through in relationships and investing. So here it is. Kira and I, right before we were getting married, guess what? We were doing a wedding registry at a store that used to be around called Bed Bath & Beyond. You remember that? Bed Bath & Beyond? Yeah. So we had our little magic zapper, and we're going through and we're, zapping dishes and zapping this. And we hadn't gotten halfway through the kitchenwares. And guess what? Kira picks up a straw holder, and mind you, what is our first place going to be? It's in a half of a duplex that's a little under 800 square feet, and it's tiny. And yeah, so she's picking up a straw holder and zapping this, and guess who loses it? Yep, me. I was completely losing it, and I had to actually leave the store. Like, I had no idea what was wrong with me at this point. I was just like, I gotta go. She was probably actually really gracious and encouraged me to do that, with a smile on her face. So anyways, coming back around, I realized, what is going on? Well, I am in this process of everything that we were picking up and zapping. I'm buying. And I am now trying to figure out where I'm going to put this in our little house. Not that it's all on me or anything, but that's my wonderful personality just shining through right there for us. I'm a bit of that saver as well. I love just saving money. And then guess what I like to do? I like to do things like, I like to buy things like kiteboarding equipment. We don't kiteboard, but it looks cool. Doesn't it look so cool? Or the TV, the next one, it's coming home with me from Costco because I think we need it right then. We don't need that, but I've discovered this along the way that Kira thinks very much I'm a spender, right? But I'm thinking I'm a saver. I've just come to reconcile that, guess what? I'm both. And I'm not better. I'm just what I am. And we're not taking the straw holder with us home right now. I don't have to figure it out right now. Some of this is just a process of understanding and exploring. And the more that we can just really try to embrace that, right? We're not stuck with something right now. We can enjoy this process. I can take the TV home. I can return the kiteboarding stuff. Or I don't even have to buy it. I can just pretend in my mind and understand that that's not going to necessarily get me the payoff down the road I need. That's just an example of who I am and how that works out in our life. You can take that for what it's worth, but we're going to dive into some more process here with you on how to move through your personality and embrace it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Seth. I mean, and I'm glad you did share that. That's funny. Finding your identity inside all of this is really, really important. Self-awareness is obviously the first step. You might be more than one of these, and you and your husband or wife may be a combination of 4 or 5 of them. And your childhood upbringing and all of that's going to drive a lot of that. But you have to embrace it. Like, if you don't identify it and you don't embrace who you are, you really can't start, figuring out how do I get to a good balance? Because honestly, saving is not wrong, but saving can be to a fault. And you have to understand that. Like, you have to figure out how do I invest? How do I protect myself? Because you could save all in one bank, and that's not wise either. So you have to look at where you're taking on extremes and how to mitigate and deal with an unbalanced scenario and have somebody give you a judgment call whether or not you are balanced.
And this is a great exercise for couples, right? You both take an opportunity to kind of go your separate ways and identify who you think you are. You embrace that, and then you come back together and just say, okay, so how do we manage this amongst ourselves? Because chances are you won't be the same money personality. There'll be some differences there. And just taking a moment to kind of jump into Seth's shoes there and understand who you are and understand what your wife's feeling in this moment about this decision and about this expense, rather than just reacting and only seeing it from your perspective is a healthy thing, and could probably help settle a whole lot of arguments for you, I bet. And then understanding from there, the kind of next step is understanding who we are or who you are as an individual or as a couple. And then, so how do we invest together? How do we take that next step and talk about long-term retirement building, kind of life solidifying investing, as opposed to a straw holder or a television or some temporary purchase that you kind of manage your way through. But those real long-term decisions that just have to be made and need to be made in unison. You have to do it as partnerships. You can't invest marital assets single-handedly and not expect some conflict along the way.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you make a really good point here in the idea that people don't realize the magnitude of the types of investments that are out there that you can do. That magnitude allows us really to find a lot of places that are palatable for all of these types of personalities and kind of address that very intentionally for each person. So that we can get 2 people to sit in the room. If your husband or wife doesn't want to join us, we're going to, every time we've ever done it without one, it's just never been successful. And, it usually doesn't continue forward because the person's still not taking it seriously. So don't be surprised when we say we expect both of you to be there, but not maybe every time, but enough to really understand both personalities. Once we start investing, don't be surprised that there's pitfalls. Don't be surprised that there's something that didn't quite go the way you thought it would or would be or how you want to do. And don't be surprised that personalities, as life changes, start developing. Like, we've seen people who have gotten really ill and then all of a sudden want lots and lots of cash, but yet there's still a healthy spouse that needs to be cared for and protected and so forth. Like, there's unhealthy ways that things that happen, or people who go from retiring, to pre-retirement, investing normally, to now they're in post-retirement and say, just move everything to cash. I just don't want to lose any money. I just want to get through it. And that doesn't work either.
You have been listening to Money on Tap, and we've been talking about personalities or money personalities. It's a lot bigger topic than one show. It's been a lot of fun to share our personal experiences and, some of the experiences with our clients. This is the stuff that makes sense when we're talking about how do we work with money and how do we come through these things. You guys, this is a great topic for us to pick back up on. I believe we're going to do that, and we're going to discuss more around the investing, like how to be an investor if you are one of these kind of personalities. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Be successful in your investing this week, people. We really appreciate you being here with us. See you next week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.